Good afternoon, everyone. We would like to call to order the July 29th BZA meeting for the City of Murfreesboro. One of the item on our agenda is determination of a quorum, which we have. The next item on our agenda is the election of chair and I guess vice chair, right? Or no?
So, actually, no.
Okay.
The officer, according to the BZA's rules of procedure, the terms of the officers run concurrently with their terms on the board. So, Davis remained chair throughout his whole term on the board until he decided to step down from the board. And so, Mr. Halliburton, there would be no need to elect a vice chair unless you were to be elected chair.
Okay. All right. So I guess what we need from this board is a nomination for the chair of BZA going forward. Anyone have a nomination?
This is a good thing. We haven't discussed it with any of you, meaning there haven't been any backroom discussions. Ken, do you?
So you missed a premature conversation. I'll go ahead and make it public that I don't think it's a good idea that I am the chair of the BZA because of me being chair of the Planning Commission.
Okay.
So I'd rather see one of y'all be in that position.
I would accept, but let's hear. I mean, Tim is seniority here.
Yeah, Tim. I'd be happy to defer to whatever.
I'm willing to serve. If it would be the will of the board.
Okay. Then yeah, I nominate Tim to serve as chair.
I'll second that.
We have a motion for Tim to be the chair. We have a second. Call roll, please.
Mr. Batchelor?
Aye.
Mr. Kimberly?
Aye.
Mr. Panesi?
Aye.
Mr. Tips?
Aye.
Vice Chair Halliburton?
Aye. We have a new chair, and now we're going to play Ring Around the Rosie.
Okay.
Am I sliding down? Does it have that we're going that way?
You don't have to, but you
Is it a
can.
wedding party? Do I go down one? Which bridesmaid do I get if I'm here versus here? I'll come down.
It's not me.
I'm in. That's fine.
It's going to hurt our YouTube ratings.
Might get. Come on. Pretend like we know each other.
Well, first of all, I appreciate the confidence everybody has in me, and I hope to try to represent the board as well as Davis has through the years. With that being said, as I try to grab my notes, okay. With that being said, the next item of business on the agenda is for public comments. I'm not aware, did we have any comments from the public for this meeting? Seeing none, we'll move into the consideration of the minutes for the regular meeting held on June 24th of 2026. Those were sent out in advance. Are there any questions, comments, or deletions that need to be made?
Seeing none, I make a motion that we approve.
Second.
There's a motion and second to approve. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I assume you're all ready to vote. If you would, Madam, call the roll.
Mr. Batchelor?
Aye.
Mr. Kimberly?
Aye.
Mr. Panesi?
Aye.
Chair Tips?
Aye.
Vice Chair Halliburton?
Aye.
Motion carried, and the minutes have been adopted. The next item is old business, and before us to consider today is an application Z25024 by the Stones River Country Club requesting a special use permit in order to construct and establish an institutional group assembly use on property situated behind 1634 and 1728 Northwest Broad Street in a single-family residential RS-15 zone. This was approved at the June 25th, 25 meeting. A request has been made by the applicant to modify the conditions of approval. A re-subdivision plat shall be submitted for review and approval, subject to the Murfreesboro zoning ordinance and subdivision regulations. The project planner for this one was Brad Barbie. He's no longer with us, so
I'll be
Matthew,
presenting chair tips.
you're going to take care of this?
Yes, sir.
All right. we'll let you proceed, sir.
Sure. Good afternoon, board members, and congratulations, Chair Tips. Yes, the application here is to amend the special use permit, which was approved by this body last year. This was to essentially expand the country club use onto an adjacent parcel. Specifically, I believe the intention is to create a chipping and putting green and a turf farm or sod farm on that parcel. So as one of the standard conditions when we do have a use expanding onto a second parcel, staff will suggest this condition of approval that a re-subdivision plat be recorded. However, in this instance, when the country club went to start that process, they discovered that in order to do that, it would require them to survey the entire 128-acre primary parcel as well as this secondary parcel, which was going to, I believe their estimate was between $20,000 and $30,000 just for the survey fee. Right. So they requested if there would be any way that we could provide relief to them. And after some research on my part, I believe that we can, if this body is amenable to it. Essentially, the both state and city subdivision regulations apply to subdivisions of land that will result in parcels that are 5 acres or less, and or subdivisions which will, in the future, be used for development or for essentially resale. And so the suggestion here is that this board modify the condition of approval to require the country club to record a restrictive covenant on the accessory parcel, essentially requiring that the accessory parcel be treated as one with the primary parcel. So it can't be sold separately and they can't build any buildings on the second parcel. If they were to do that, let me back up. The restriction would be they cannot do that without first recording the re-subdivision plat. If they do that, then that would take them out of the purview of the state law and the city subdivision regulations. And essentially, both of these parcels will be treated as one going forward in the future. So the suggestion is that the condition of approval be modified to state that the applicant will prepare and record a land use restriction to be signed by both the applicant and the city and subject to approval by the city attorney. This restriction shall provide that until such time as a subdivision plat is recorded for both parcels, the accessory parcel shall not have a building placed on it, nor will the accessory parcel be sold separately from the larger country club parcel. So I hope all that makes sense. I'm certainly happy to answer any questions if you have them. With that, the staff does recommend approval.
Okay. Of course, this being an old request, there's no public hearing on this, correct?
Correct.
So essentially, the chair would be looking for a motion from the board.
Correct, yes.
And I do want to share, I have a membership at that club, so I'm going to abstain from discussion and vote.
I'll have to do the same.
Okay. Are there any other questions or comments for our staff attorney on this?
I guess just on this was always a standalone piece of property, or it was always part of the club?
This piece of property was always separate. This is the first time it's being brought in as part of the club. And staff is not entirely sure how it was created, but it is a landlocked parcel that has no road access. And so this really is the only kind of use that this parcel could be put to. So this is the first time that it'll be brought in as part of the country club use.
It's actually off of the back of the Georgetown subdivision, right?
Correct, yes. It's behind the Georgetown subdivision
Which was a
and behind
residential.
that Kroger shopping center there.
Yeah, that note about a potentially $20,000 survey fee for a standalone piece of property, that doesn't raise any flags to you?
Well, the reason, at least my understanding was, they would have to survey the entire country club parcel in addition to this parcel to do the re-subdivision plat. Okay. And so this is I think it's a 1.4 acre parcel. The country club parcel is 127 acres. And in order to do the plat, they would have to survey all 128 some acres, which that does, I'm not a surveyor, but that doesn't seem to me to be particularly out of line.
Okay, and the intent of the request for the survey was what?
So in order to record a re-subdivision plat, they would have to map out both of the parcels that will be combined into one. And so that survey would be required in order to draw up that map to then have it be recorded.
Gotcha, thank you.
Are there further questions? Seeing none, I assume that, do we have a motion
I'll make a motion.
and second?
Is that a motion to approve, subject to staff comment?
Yeah.
Okay, all those, I assume we're ready to vote. If you would, please call the roll.
Yeah, I think we need a second. Yeah, I'll second.
I thought,
He's abstaining.
okay, you're right, correct.
My only involvement is I'm aware of this facility because I've seen it as I hook a ball out of bounds nearby, but I don't have comment on the official business.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Would you please call the roll?
Mr. Batchelor?
Aye.
Mr. Panesi?
Aye.
Mr. with Chair Tips?
Aye. Motion carried. Thank you. Moving on into new business. We have application Z26029 by TriStar Transport, doing business as Premier Sign Company, representing 7-Eleven, the owner of Speedway, is requesting variances from the following sections of the sign ordinance for property located at 5705 Epps Mill Road. Section 25.2-24A, 28B states electronic graphic display signs are prohibited in all zoning districts. Applicants are requesting approval to allow an electronic graphic display sign. And Section 25-2-26, which states, except as authorized by this section, it shall be unlawful to have more than one ground sign on a lot of record or in violation of the regulations set forth herein. The applicant's requesting approval to allow a second interstate on-site ground sign, and the subject property does not qualify for a second sign. Teresa Stevens is going to be presenting this. Teresa.
Good afternoon, newly appointed Chair Tips and members of the Board of Zoning Appeals. As he stated, I'm Teresa Stevens, the sign administrator for the City of Murfreesboro. I'm here today to present to you a variance request for property outside the city that has a sewer agreement. The agreement includes compliance with the city sign ordinance. The property is located at 5705 Epps Mill Road. The applicant is requesting a variance from our sign ordinance standards that includes the number of ground signs allowed on a parcel and the type of sign face display for a ground sign. Included in the staff report are two screenshots. The first is the proposed interstate on-site sign showing the sign cabinet. The second is the overhead view of the parcel and showing the ground sign, the current ground sign that has a permit as the yellow dot, and the proposed location of the ground sign is the red dash. The only street front is the red line on Capitol Way. The applicant, representing the property owner of 7-Eleven and Speedway, is requesting to install a 50-foot tall interstate sign with LED digital display to display the gas price numbers. The applicant was issued a sign permit for one ground sign that has since been installed. This property is allowed to have one sign per parcel unless the property has an additional street front of 100 linear feet. At least one street front must have 200 feet to qualify for an interstate on-site sign. The additional sign is prohibited as the parcel only has one street frontage and has an existing ground sign on the property. The parcel was divided for development. There's a strip of land between this property and Epps Mill Road that currently belongs to Bogani Properties, LLC. There is a TDOT approved TDOT proposal that designates land fronting Epps Mill Road as right-of-way. This acquisition of the property by TDOT could provide the property owner with the additional street front required for a second ground sign. However, at this time, there is no formal offer or a set date for TDOT to take action on this property. An attached letter dated April 24, 2026 from TDOT as part of this application states that while TDOT makes every effort to avoid private property when maintaining or building existing and future highways, this project is likely to include formal offer to purchase a portion of your property for the best engineered highway solution. The letter indicates a portion of 5705 Epps Mill may be taken as right-of-way. It does not reference 110 Capitol Way, but it could be assumed a portion of that property, including Epps Mill frontage, would be included in the possible right-of-way acquisition. As proposed, the interstate on-site sign does not comply with our sign ordinance for ground signs and illumination restrictions as shown in the table below. So as proposed, it does not have the minimum second road frontage or the 200 feet of road frontage that it needs. And we also do not include or allow LED or graphic display for signs, not only just gas price numbers, but any kind of sign in the city of Murfreesboro. Staff recommendation for use of an additional ground sign and installation of changeable sign, either video display or electronic graphic display, is to be denied. There is no formal offer or recorded plat showing this property to have the required additional street front for the second sign. The city will be glad to revisit if the parcel lines change to include the strip of property along Epps Mill Road as TDOT right-of-way, or if it becomes property of this owner. At that point, the interstate on-site sign would be an allowable use, but the use of the video display or electronic graphic sign is not an allowable use within the city, and any signs that may currently utilize this type of sign face are non-conforming signs and are protected under our non-conforming section of the sign ordinance. If you have any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Stevens. Is there any questions?
I've got one. Epps Mill Road is not a state road, is it?
It is not, but it's right off you can see it's right off the interstate interchange, and there are future plans to expand this.
The ramp?
The ramp.
Okay. I
So
get it.
it's not in, it is on the TDOT website, but there's no set date. There's a projected timeline. I can't remember exactly when it is, but it's not a finalized, to my knowledge, not a finalized plan.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Is there any knowledge about the expected use of the nearby lots that are currently vacant? Like, what's the intended use in the future of that, or are those just open right now?
The county has those zoned as employment activity center, so it's very similar to commercial highway or light industrial. I imagine that's probably what will go in that area. It'll most likely be commercial.
Question, so the gas station is currently operating and there is an existing sign?
Yes, it's a new gas station, but they do have a permit for one ground sign that they're allowed.
Do we have a picture of the current ground sign, or does that not really even come into play?
It doesn't really relate. I don't have a picture of it, but it doesn't really affect this request because it's an allowable use. And if they had the second road frontage, the interstate on-site would be an allowable use, but not the digital display.
Thank you.
And I did notice that in the request that they sent, the letter they sent, they kind of indicated that TDOT's in progress of acquiring some of the land that would then give them the ability to do this. And in the staff recommendations, it does mention the city would reconsider this if and when that event came to be. I guess my question for city staff would be, do we have the ability to conditionally approve this? Effectively, instead of making these people come back to us if and when this does occur, are we able to approve it if and when that does occur? Does that question make sense?
Yes.
It does make sense, and yes, I believe that would be within your power to say that this would be approved for such time as it has second road frontage, for example.
I just
It
don't know how efficient that is.
it would be approved anyway. I don't know that a BZA action would need to take place for the actual interstate on-site sign,
Okay, I understand.
unless our sign ordinance changed, but.
Good question. Is there any other questions? Before we go into the public hearing portion of this application, I think it would be incumbent upon our attorney to kind of, especially with newer members here, go over what our objective is today with this being a variance request as opposed to a special use request before we hear from the public.
Yes, absolutely. And let me, if I may, I'm going to pull up the variance portion of the zoning ordinance so I can read that to you. But yes, I did actually have a training session with Mr. Panesi last week where we did discuss variances. But as a primer for everyone else, or a reminder, variances under state law are an extremely high bar that must be met by the applicant. They are intended to be very, very limited. There are a number of standards, all of which have to be met, and this body needs to make written findings as to each of those standards in order to either grant or deny the variance. Now, the writing can be in the minutes, which is how we've done it in the past. But as long as we have a specific discussion about each of the standards for variance, and there's clear discussion or vote by this board of how we find we'll be compliant with state law. The variance portion of the zoning ordinance is contained in section 10, subsection E, and the standards are as follows. The first is that the specifically identified characteristics of the land, such as narrowness, shallowness, shape, topography, or other condition of the land, are such that compliance with one or more applicable zoning regulations would be extraordinarily and peculiarly difficult or would result in undue hardship to the applicant. The second is that the specifically identified characteristics are unusual to the subject land as compared to other land in the same zoning classification in the same area. Third is that the specifically identified characteristics or hardship were not created by any action or inaction of the owner or the owner's agent. 4 is that granting the requested variance would not be unduly detrimental to other land in the vicinity of the land for which the variance is requested. And 5, that granting the requested variance would not impair an adequate supply of light and air to adjacent properties, unreasonably increase the congestion in public streets, increase the danger of fire, otherwise endanger the public's health, safety, comfort, or morals, or substantially impair the intent and purpose of the zoning ordinance or of the general plan for the area. So Ms. Stevens can speak a bit more intelligently than I can on this, but as I read it, there does not appear to be any specifically identified characteristic of the land of this parcel, other than the fact that they don't currently have road frontage, and they believe that possibly, maybe at some point in the future, they might have road frontage, but that's not guaranteed. If that were to be considered by this body to be a characteristic of the land that requires the variance, then the rest could be seen to flow from that characteristic would be unusual to this land. It wouldn't apply to parcels around it. The hardship would not have been created by the applicant, although I'm not sure how this parcel was created in the shape that it was created. If there was a common owner who subdivided it into this shape, then there could be an argument that would have been created by a predecessor in interest. And then one thing that this body would need to consider would be the fourth requirement, which is that granting the variance would not be unduly detrimental to other land in the vicinity. The intention of this proposal here is to install a very, very tall and intentionally very visible sign that'll be visible from all the parcels around it. So whether that would be unduly detrimental will be within this body's discretion to decide. But I'll let Ms. Teresa correct me if I got any of that wrong or if there's any other considerations that I missed.
No, I would say you hit it right on. The only thing I would add is on number 4, that it could affect if this parcel at one on Epps Mill remained the same and TDOT did not take that property, then they would have the ability to put a sign on their property. Just that it could be the larger interstate sign could possibly interfere with their ability to put a sign on their property. I don't know that would happen, but it is an unusually shaped property.
And I'm sorry, forgive me, this is some new territory for me, so I do have a number of questions, but if I do notice in the narrative submitted that the specific request states that this is the approval of the high-rise sign prior to TDOT land acquisition. And at least based on a statement earlier, I guess my understanding is if this TDOT process is in fact approved, then this land or this sign would be, there wouldn't need to be any special permission for the sign because the circumstances would exist. And so I respect, as the property owner wants to kind of get ahead of that and get this sign moving, expecting that approval. But am I correct that if these circumstances come to be, then there would not need to be any special variance? And I'm also curious if Ms. Shackelford or anyone from the company is here to speak on that.
Yes, Ms. Shackelford is here.
Okay.
And
We'll call on her.
Oh, I'm sorry. I had a turn on that.
No, you go ahead.
the TDOT, if TDOT acquisition takes place and it becomes right-of-way, then by default, it would have street front, which would allow it to have the second sign.
Although that would not affect the type of sign, which I believe is also an issue. Is that
Correct. They would not be allowed to have the digital display video.
Anything further? If seeing none, we'll call on Ms. Shackelford if she would like to come forward, state her name and the company, and have any comments that she has on the application.
Good afternoon. Congratulations, sir. My name is Betsy Shackelford with Premier Sign Company. We are part of TriStar Transport, so TriStar Transport doing business as Premier Sign Company. We're based out of Nashville. And thank you, Teresa, for all of your help on this, well, all of our Murfreesboro projects, but especially this one. This one has been tricky for sure, so thank you for that. In addition, as she's already mentioned, if TDOT does purchase this property, then they would be allowed to have this 50-foot sign. One of the biggest problems that they have is that Murfreesboro requires, let me rephrase that, does not allow digital signs. The easiest way to, again, let me back up, I apologize. This is going to be a 50-foot sign, which would be allowed by the code as long as there are 2 street frontages. But because of the code and it doesn't allow digital price signs, then that means that it would, to my knowledge at least, there are only 2, either a placard type price sign, which for a 50-foot tall sign would be problematic as far as having somebody climb up there every time the price changes. There's also such a thing as a scroller, which can be done automatically. It looks almost exactly like the placards, only it's on more of a wheel type thing. The biggest problem is that these are only made in Germany. And in addition to that, they are only made up to 20 inches tall. Now, if this is a 50-foot sign that is designed to be seen by cars coming down the interstate, you can imagine that 20 inches tall isn't really big enough to be seen from the interstate. And so the primary purpose of this is to, they would love to go ahead and get a jump start and be able to put the sign up prior to TDOT adopting the property, but primarily they want to make sure that they can have that digital sign, because the digital signs, they can get much larger, and of course that would be visible from a greater distance. But the scroller type signs are simply not made over 20 inches tall.
Okay.
Stevens, I was thinking that you could have a digital sign, a gas sign, as long as it was stagnant, meaning it didn't flash and it didn't change within so many seconds or minutes, or am I just dreaming that?
I think that was proposed at one point, but it did not pass.
Okay, all right, thank you.
So all current gas stations, like on, all along 24, for example, and the exits at Old Fort, they're all in compliance. None of them sought variances. Is that correct?
That's correct. To my knowledge, none of them sought variances. There are a few digital signs that were put in place before the ordinance that are non-conforming signs. And also I think there's 1 or 2 in the city, not on the interstate, but just inside the city, that were county property that have been annexed, and those signs by right are allowed to stay.
May I ask, just in terms of, I'm interested in what the public policy is behind the ban. I understand, and I'm reading the code about the fact that these types of signs are prohibited in all zones. I just was not around at the time that was adopted. So may I ask what the driving motive and public policy is in passing that?
Well, I think since it was passed, a lot of technology has changed. At the time that it was presented, it was more like the pixelated type signs, and they were pretty bright and quite often a distraction to drivers and can cause clutter in your city. So I think Murfreesboro Planning Commission and City Council decided that was not something they wanted at the time.
I can kind of comment on that. So one of the, and this is not trying to downgrade any other city or whatever, But the thought process, I think, back when this was discussed, is you didn't want a proliferation of these digital signs like if you were going to Gatlinburg, and every business has got these signs that are flashing, and the city at that point, me being on the planning commission, council, and I probably even staff, did not want that proliferation. And then it got to the point, like I just said, because I thought it was where if it was stagnant, it was okay, and didn't even really want to go there based upon the fact that it didn't get approved. So just a little background. Yeah.
Also, another thing that we've considered with our legal team is it's really difficult for us to say, yes, you can have a gas price number, but no, you can't have your 99-cent hot dogs displayed. So it's really difficult to say you can have this, but you can't have that when it's all signage.
Okay, if there's no more questions of staff or the applicant, we will close this portion and go into the public hearing.
Chairman, if I can make one modification to what I said earlier. The provision of variances I was reading was from the zoning ordinance. It's brought to my attention that there is a separate standards for variances for signs, which I did omit. If I can briefly, I'll touch on those. This comes from not the zoning ordinance, but from the city code, section 25.2-6. Subsection D is the standards for variance. And it states, it is the intent of this chapter to use variances only to modify the application of any of the provisions of this chapter, being the sign ordinance, where there are practical difficulties or where unusual hardships may result. The BZA shall not grant a variance unless it makes findings based upon evidence presented it as follows. Number one, the conditions upon which the petition for a variance is based would not be applicable generally to other property within the same district. Two, if the condition complained of by the applicant is a general or widespread condition, then a variance shall not be permissible. Financial factors alone shall not be considered as a basis for granting a variance. Three, the alleged difficulty or hardship has not been created by any person having an interest in the property after the effective date of this chapter. And four, the proposed variance would not increase the danger of fire or endanger the public safety. So those are the four standards for variance for sign ordinance specifically. And so as you'll note there, the primary consideration seems to be is whether the condition upon which the variance is based is applicable generally to other properties or if it is applicable specifically to this property.
Okay, thank you, sir. Is there anyone that wishes to come forward and speak on this application? If so, if you would, just please come up to the desk and identify yourself.
I have a question in the meantime, if I may. Is it too late for that, or do I?
No, it's fine. Well, in fact, there's no one's come forward, so we'll close the public hearing portion and open it back up for discussion or a motion.
Okay, I apologize. Just
No,
coming into this,
quite all right.
I was curious, had there ever been a request to relocate the existing sign? That would seem like it would be an easier route, but I'm not sure if that was part of that.
What do you mean to only have the interstate sign instead of having the other?
Yeah.
It was discussed during the application process, and I believe the applicant desired to have two signs.
Okay.
Anything else?
It would just be I'm also curious, especially given what was just shared from the code, if this were to be approved, are we expecting, are there going to be other businesses nearby that will be seeking this same relief? Because kind of what you said, Ken, if you clear one very large electronic sign, if I'm a property owner nearby, I'd like one of those too.
Like tomorrow.
Right. And I have no doubt for the business this would be very beneficial. I'm sure, and I understand why they're requesting this, but do we know if there are any businesses near? I know this is a new gas station, so this area is obviously under development. Do we know if there be any expectations of similarly situated properties requesting them?
I don't know with certainty, but I do know there are a number of gas stations that have large signs. And if the rationale is that scroller signs, there is no company on the market that makes scroller signs that are large enough for this type of sign, then anyone that has this type of sign is going to want to come in. And I will note that those standards for variance that I wrote, City Council chose to write twice in two different provisions that if the condition is general or widespread, the variance should not be granted. And so if the basis for the need for the variance is that there is no scroller sign that's large enough, that could be seen as a widespread or general
It
condition.
would be an industry-wide issue.
Correct.
And certainly if this variance was granted, the other companies would be equally interested in large signage.
Correct.
Okay, if there's no other comments, the chair would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to deny based on staff comments.
We have a
We have
motion.
to document also what,
I think technically, as we've done in the past, we have to address the purposes of the variance and what is allowed, what's not.
Yeah, I agree. I think it would be good for us to take each of those items in turn. And so, Chairman, if you'd like, I can read each of the conditions and we can have a discussion or a vote on each of those, if you'd like to proceed that way.
That would be fine. Mr. Batchelor, you're okay with that?
Yes.
We have a motion.
Right.
Before we do that, do we have a second to the motion?
Second.
We have a second. So
Okay.
if you would,
So
Mr. Tully.
The first standard for a variance is the condition upon which the petition for a variance is based would not be applicable generally to other property within the same district. And so that would be the finding if a variance were to be granted. And so, to be safe, I think to be clear, I'll reword to keep it in line with Mr. Batchelor's motion. So the motion was to deny, and so that would be on condition 1, the condition upon which the petition for variance is based is applicable generally to other property within the same district. And we should have discussions, make sure the board agrees with that.
I agree.
Okay. So then the second is, it kind of already states itself. If the condition complained of by the applicant is a general or widespread condition, then a variance shall not be permissible. Financial factors alone should not be considered as a basis for granting a variance.
We agree.
So the third is the alleged difficulty or hardship has not been created by any person having an interest in the property after the effective date of this chapter. And I think you're finding here, it could go either way since you've already found that 2 of the conditions are not met. So even if you do find that the alleged hardship was not created by the applicant, that doesn't mean you have to.
I don't believe there's any insinuation that the property owner somehow put themselves in this position or had some ulterior motive to construct this issue.
Agree.
And then the fourth is the proposed variance would increase the danger of fire or endanger the public safety.
I'm not sure about it.
Yeah. So then I would suggest that the motion be to deny the variance based upon the failure to meet conditions 1 and 2 of the variance standards.
If you would, Madam, please call the roll.
Mr. Batchelor?
You're voting in the affirmative since the motion denied, you're voting the affirmative to deny.
Affirmative to deny. Thank you.
So that would be an aye.
Aye.
Mr. Kimberly?
Aye.
Mr. Panesi?
Aye.
Chair Tips?
Aye.
Vice Chair Halliburton?
Aye.
The motion carried. The application is denied at this point in time. Moving on to the next item, special use permits. Application Z26030 by Shannon Hicks for the Home Team Incorporated, representing the Satiano Trust, requesting a special use permit in order to construct and establish an accessory apartment in a residential single-family RS-15 zone on property located at 1118 Southeast Broad Street. And Mr. Shackelford Royal, we'll hear from you. Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon, Chair Tips and Board. This application is for a special use permit to allow a accessory apartment. The applicant, Home Inc., is applying on the behalf of the Satriano Trust, and the accessory apartment will be to accommodate an in-law who is already living on site but is in need of more space. The property is zoned RS-15, and the nearby zoning uses include residential duplex and multifamily, as well as a planned commercial district on the corner. The accessory apartment will be in the rear yard and is approximately 200 feet from the front property line, as well as well over 5 feet from all of the other accessory apartment setback requirements. The relevant zoning sections for this are the general standards of applicability, which all BZA applications have to meet, and staff believes that these standards have been met, but I'll go over them briefly just so you are familiar. The proposed building will not have any substantial or undue adverse effect upon the adjacent properties or neighborhood. These conditions include traffic conditions, parking, utility facilities, as well as public health. Because all of the people the unit is being designed to accommodate already live on site, we believe that parking won't be affected by this. And because there's already multifamily and close proximity, we believe that the standard has been met and is not at risk of being not met. The proposed building will be constructed and arranged in a way so that it is compatible with the immediate vicinity. The design from the street, it appears like an accessory garage more than an accessory apartment, so we believe that that standard has been met. Standard number 3, the building will serve or will be served adequately by public facilities. There's already an existing single-family home there, and we believe that that standard can easily be met. Standard number 4, there won't be any loss to any significant natural or scenic or historical importance sites. From our research, I didn't find that the addition of accessory apartment will pose any risk to anything of natural or significant importance. As well as the general standards of applicability, there are also standards specific to accessory apartments. We believe that they have been met, but I'll go over them again briefly just so you're familiar. The applicant has confirmed that there will only be one accessory apartment at 1118 Southeast Broad Street. So standard 1 has been met. Standard 2, the applicant has agreed, besides bona fide temporary absences, that the homeowner will occupy at least one of the dwelling units. Standard number 3, the apartment shall be designed in a way so that it is reasonably feasible and the appearance of a single-family home is remained. The exterior entrance, like I mentioned before, you won't be able to tell that there is more than one residence on site. Standard number 4 applies to attached accessory structure apartments, and this will be a detached accessory structure apartment, so that one doesn't apply. Standard number 5, if approved, the applicant has agreed to get all necessary permits prior to construction, as well as recording a restriction of land use document. Because the proposed document or accessory apartment is less than 700 square feet, we believe that standard number 6 has been met by not being more than 700 square feet, which is the cap on all accessory apartments. Standard number 7, the BZA may add additional conditions of approval, and one of which would be the restriction of land use document that will be recorded prior to getting building permits. Staff recommends approval for this accessory structure permit, subject to the following conditions. 1, the owner occupies at least one of the units. 2, a restriction of land use document is recorded. 3, no separate utility meters be installed. 4, no separate mailboxes be installed. 5, they apply with the building and codes for permits. And 6, and this one is specific to this specific application, the attic above the garage, the attic above the accessory apartment shall not be converted to livable space in the future in order to remain compliant with the accessory apartment standard. And I'll open the floor up for questions if you have any.
Any questions of staff? Seeing none, would the applicant, I'm sorry, go ahead.
We have I did note in here that there's an existing building that's being, I guess, demolished, or this is replacing an existing garage. I believe the application calls it outdated.
Correct.
Did that factor into your decision, to your recommendations to approve this project, and if so, how?
No, not really. The accessory apartment, even if it was proposed in additional or in a different area, we probably would have still approved it. That other building coming down, it was old and in need of repair. This will just be replacing it in terms of location, but even if it doesn't come down, it wouldn't affect our decision with the accessory apartment.
And the total square footage is 1,130, correct?
So the total square footage of the accessory apartment plus the garage that it sits on top of is 1,100 square feet, but the accessory apartment itself that has a separate entrance, that's just 688 feet.
Okay. Any other questions? Would the applicant like to come forward and make any comments? If you would, just state your name.
My name is Shannon Hicks. I'm with the home team. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time this afternoon and your service. My client has a old, very outdated single story. It was meant to be a garage, but it's too small for modern cars. That building, I do believe, would be condemned if it was investigated. It's leaning. I don't think the power meets code. They've recently had a pool installed. They're looking to they've got a patio that would serve for a grill, an area with that pool, plus the mom of the owner is living there. She needs a little more space and privacy being the primary option. So this will serve as a garage, eliminating the aluminum carport structures that are there, eliminating the outdated garage, providing a new parking garage, allowing for better turnaround to pull out onto Broad Street.
Any questions of the applicant?
I do notice the attic space, and there's a condition that indicates that this is not going to be converted to livable space. As the contractor, was the decision to make that attic space, I would imagine it's not climate controlled or not livable in the construction plans, was that made so that the square footage fits within the codes we're discussing here?
Yes, that space fit over the garage, so we were creating storage space, which they don't have in the house. But to keep the square footage correct, we did leave it unfinished, unconditioned.
Thank you, Mr. Hicks. If there's nothing further, we'll close this portion and go into the public hearing. Is there anyone that wishes to come forward and speak on this application? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. We'll move back into regular session for any comments or motions.
Go ahead.
No, please.
I'll make a motion we approve, subject to all the items that Mr. Royal outlined.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Well, second. Further discussion? Seeing none, assume you're ready to vote. Madam, if you would, please call the roll.
Mr. Batchelor?
Aye.
Mr. Kimberly?
Aye.
Mr. Panesi?
Aye.
Chair Tips?
Aye.
Vice Chair Halliburton?
Aye.
Motion carries and the application is approved. Thank you, sir. Moving into the next application, Z26031 by ASI Storage Properties LLC, requesting a special use permit in order to establish a garden and lawn supply store in a commercial fringe zone for property located at 2415 Halls Hill Pike. Molly Gilliland, the planner on this, if you would.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Tips. Good afternoon, Board. For this next item on the agenda, applicant ASI Storage Properties is requesting a special use permit for a garden and lawn supply use located at 2415 Halls Hill Pike. The lot is zoned commercial fringe, and a garden and lawn supply use is allowed in CF zoning, but only through a special use permit. If we look at the area surrounding the lot, we've got RM16 zoning to the north with the Campus Crest Apartments, additional CF zoning to the west with the Dollar General, and then county zoning to the south and to the east. The southern county zoning is currently more commercial uses, and the eastern county zoning is currently a residential lot. On this lot in question, there are three different addresses. 2411 and 2419 are a separate self-storage facility that will not be changed by the new use. 2415 is the one we're looking at, and it has suites A through F. Currently, Suite A is a tobacco and beer retailer. Suite B through E are vacant and were previously used as a self-storage facility, and Suite F is a beauty salon. If I pull up the site plan, let's see. The new use would encompass Suites B through F, requiring interior demolition of Suite F and 4 storage units on the northern part of that building. Suites B through E the interior has already been demolished under a previous permit. A new loading door and an access drive are proposed for the eastern side of the building that would be used for deliveries by parcel trucks and approximately once a month a tractor trailer. In accordance with staff feedback, the new access drive will be enter-only. The parking lot will have additional screening as it abuts Halls Hill Pike, and the dumpster located in the rear interior, in the darker bubble you see on the screen, will be enclosed with a brick enclosure and gate. A tree study was also done to analyze the existing buffering on the eastern side of the property as it joins with that residential lot. There is an existing tree line and some landscaping on this property, but staff determined that additional screening was needed through tall shrubs or evergreen trees, given all the activity from the deliveries that would be going on that side. Under Section 9 of our city zoning ordinance, a garden and lawn supply use does not have any additional standards for a special use permit, leaving only the standards of general applicability to apply. To summarize, the new access drive meets all criteria of city engineering to limit the impact on traffic conditions, and the available parking exceeds the required amount for the lot's combined uses. The building will remain compatible with the surrounding commercial uses, and compliant buffering and screening will ensure compatibility and lessen the impact on the other surrounding uses. To further limit the use's impact, the applicant has highlighted that there will be no outdoor storage or display of goods for this new garden and lawn supply use. The proposed use is to be housed in an existing building that's been there for about 10 years, and it has multiple access points onto a minor arterial roadway. The structure will continue to be serviced by city and county utilities, as well as fire and solid waste, and stormwater infrastructure already exists on site. Finally, there are no known natural, scenic, or historic features on site or nearby that will be negatively impacted by this use. Given all of this information, staff recommends approval of this special use permit, subject to the following conditions. There will be no outdoor storage or display of goods for the garden and lawn supply use. All existing landscaping is to remain on the eastern border to create a buffer with the adjacent neighbor. A line of tall shrubs or evergreen trees is to be planted along the eastern border of the lot to provide additional screening between the subject property and a residentially zoned lot. And the applicant shall obtain all necessary permits with the Building and Codes Department and shall comply with all code requirements. Thank you, and I will now open the floor for questions.
Thank you, Ms. Gilliland. Are there any questions of staff?
I've got one. It's saying in general that they're going to plant these trees and that we have an outline, but are we dictating a specific buffer? Is it a type A, a type B? You see what I'm saying? Or we're just going by what is on the plat?
I don't believe a specific buffer in terms of the lettering was given.
That was my only thing I noted as well. My kids tell me I'm tall, but I don't feel tall amongst my friends. And so if you say a tall shrubs, I just wonder if there's any specificity needed as to that height or depth. And then that may be part of also asking whether whether the property owner to the east side has any input on this, because that's who's being protected by this shrub line. Is there any, and again, I don't know historically if you do pick a height or if it
you guys would like to add a condition to select a mature height?
Yeah, you certainly can. The other thing I'd recommend is, Molly, if you could go to the photos that are in the packet.
Yes.
That might be helpful for the board to see. It seems, at least, this isn't official, but the way I read it is it's kind of its own bespoke buffer, because they are requiring the applicant to maintain the existing vegetation, which does screen quite a bit, and adding evergreens in addition to that.
So if one was to equate, and I don't know if the applicant or the applicant's representative wants to answer this, if one was to equate what we're asking them to do, what would this equate to, buffer-wise?
If it's within order, we'll have the applicant or the representative come forward, introduce themselves, and then make any comments or answer that question.
Good afternoon, Chairman Tips, members of the board. I'm Bill Huddleston with Huddleston Steel Engineering. Congratulations, I think, on your
We'll let you know.
new position. Certainly want to thank former Chairman Young for his service over the years. As you can see, well, I'm not sure you can see the picture. I'm looking at a picture, and I don't know if IT can pull it up. There it is. As you can see, that buffer right now is very significant. I'm going to have a hard time finding places to plant plants on there, but we'll be happy to plant some more shrubs along there. We normally look at a few arborvitaes, something like that, to help screen, but there's already a significant screen there. To answer Mr. Halliburton's question on the type of buffer, with the amount of plants we already have there, putting more plants in there, we're probably looking at a type C kind of buffer with the additional landscaping.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
And may I also ask you just if you've had any dialogue with the property owner and whether they're have any issue with your proposal?
We have not. We went out there and surveyed the trees to make sure we knew what was there, but we haven't talked to him about it.
You meant the adjacent property owner?
Yes, the eastern property side, yes.
Several of the trees and bushes that were surveyed were on the neighbor's property, so this would just be an additional layer of landscaping, and I think type B or type C would be sufficient.
And at least from that landowner's side, this would not be changing the use of this property. It's been used in this manner commercially in the past, I'd imagine.
Yes, we did the original design on this probably at least 10 years ago for a different developer. The Freeman family, who's represented here today, has bought this. They own the Store Place storage units around town. We've been working for them for over 30 years, starting at Thompson Lane and most recently across the street from the VA. They have a very nice facility there. The landscaping business is Dickens Turf and Supply, which was formerly on Thompson Lane. Mm-hmm. They have now since moved to the old Osborne Carpets building that's at Broad Street, Monty Hale Drive. This would be another location for them. The key here, and I think the reason why landscape businesses get special use permits, because you need to look at what's going on storage-wise as far as materials, plant materials, that sort of thing around a site. And for this site, all of that is interior. We're putting all of it inside. So we got Planning Commission approval last week and looking forward to getting approval today. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Would the applicant like to wish to speak?
Hi, this is Jimmy Freeman. Good afternoon, Board of Zoning Appeals. Appreciate your time. As mentioned earlier, I'm with the ownership group of A Storage Inn Properties. This is a build-a-suit for Dickens. Dickens has a location off of 1402 Northwest Broad Street. Yet, I want to be clear, this location is different than a typical Dickens location. So what I mean by that, there's going to be no lawnmowers itself here. There's really going to be no outdoor supplies or showing of goods. And so the vision kind of behind this is it's all interior with a little bit of a showroom for the retail products and supply. And then there's a little bit of a storage in the back, inside storage in the back. And then we'll have a roll-up door, just typical box trucks to drop off supplies itself. So, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman. Any questions? Seeing none, we'll close this portion and open up the floor for a public hearing. Is there anyone wishing to come forward and speak on this application? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and open the floor back up to the board for any comments or motions.
Move to approve this, including the conditions recommended by staff.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. I do have one question. Do we need to address, as the application stated, just the tall shrubs without any specific mention of a Class B or Class C? Does that need to be amended, Mr. Tully?
I don't think it necessarily has to be, but I think you could include in your motion that condition specifically be tall shrubs or evergreen trees that would be compliant with the type B or type C buffer. That would make it clear, I think, for staff, but I don't think you necessarily have to.
Based on the information we've heard thus far, is that even necessary with the amount of landscaping that's already there?
As Mr. Robeson said earlier, and good afternoon, Chairman Tips and members of the board. As Mr. Robeson said earlier, Mr. Huddleston's tree survey indicated that a good number of those trees were on the neighbor's property, and and this property owner doesn't have any control over that property owner's trees. So what I think your recommendation for a type of buffer is spot on, because that allows us to and the applicant to design to a standard, a known standard in our zoning ordinance. And so I think either a type B or a type C buffer, type C being a little bit heavier, we're comfortable with either of those and are happy to move forward with either one of those types of buffers.
Okay, without objection, I'll go back to your motion. Are you willing to, without having to make an amendment and voting on an amendment and so forth, just want to restructure your motion?
Yes, if it meets procedure, I'd be happy to reframe the motion to incorporate it as Class B. I think given the existing shrubbery, I'm not sure if Class C is necessary, that there is already substantial. I would personally just worry that going Class C might put more burden on the people developing this than may be necessary.
Okay.
But if it needs to be through a motion to amend my own motion and we take a second and vote on that,
I don't think that's necessary, but if everyone's okay with that, it's including Class B landscaping in that item number 3, or item number 3 on the conditions. Second are okay with that?
It still
And
yes.
Any other comments or discussion? Yes, sir.
Chairman Tips, I did have one thing to add. Mr. Huddleston brought to my attention that they may not have the adequate width for the buffer type, but they could certainly get the required number of plantings in the space that they have. And so I think the motion would just need to be type B buffer as regards to the number of plantings that would be required in a type B buffer.
Is it fair to state that my motion could be to approve this with staff conditions with the modification that the language saying tall shrubs is modified to say Class B or as close as is reasonably possible in that physical confines of the border?
I'm comfortable with that if Mr. Tully is.
Yes, I think that would be a good way to put it, yes.
And Mr. I'm sorry, Mr. Chips, you're the chair.
Okay, everybody's good. Any other discussion? Seeing none, Ms. Fulton, would you call the roll?
Mr. Batchelor?
Aye.
Mr. Kimberly?
Aye.
Mr. Panesi?
Aye.
Chair Tips?
Aye.
Vice Chair Halliburton?
Aye.
Motion carried. The application's approved. Thank you all for coming. Moving on to item number 8, staff reports and any other business. Do we have any other business, Mr. Roberson?
No, sir.
Seeing none, the chair would entertain a motion to adjourn.
1 point, though, I think we have a birthday at the table.
No, I'm over the age where that matters.
Okay. Well, happy birthday, regardless.
I'm not as young as Ken. I don't celebrate birthdays anymore. But yes, it is.
Do we have a
Nowhere I'd rather be.
second
I
to
just
the?
wanted it on the record, though.
Yeah,
Yes.
great.
All right, so motion to adjourn
So moved.
and second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. We stand adjourned.
Thanks.
Thank you all.